Got a lot of hair.
Okay, so it's 5:30. Thank you, Megan. We'll get started. We have a few people in attendance with this. We'll record this and have it on the city's website for later. So there's going to be 2 of these this year, and this first one is mostly about execution of events, and particularly ones that are gatherings downtown. And so we have Chief Lasoya, Adelina, and Heather, who will all share different aspects of their departments that are relevant to the question. And so this is kind of what we're going to cover: Alpine Visitor Center, how events interact with the Visitor Center, and what Heather can offer. Then we'll talk about APD issues, specifically how to take care of street closures and parades, and also questions about security and public safety that have come up with some of the larger events in the last year. And lastly, there's a new contract for waste disposal that affects if one has a big downtown event. And then most important, our next workshop is the one that you really would want the information for, and that is going to be all the details on the grant application process. We'll have the schedule and all the requirements and things like that on the 6th. So we'll start with Heather.
Do I need to go for a microphone, or does it matter?
If you want to use it, you don't have
Okay. So I'm just going to talk briefly about what the Visitor Center needs for people who are putting on events, what we can do to help you promote your event. So one thing that's definitely new this year is that the Visitor Center Pavilion is available for public events. We have already hosted some things there. Some of the stuff is things that we sponsor ourselves through Visit Alpine. A lot of it's been promotion of music, or it's an actual city event. We've partnered with the police department for a couple of things. And then we have had other people that have used the pavilion, music jams. We've had the Family Crisis Center had a completely free, open to the public event there, just a family Saturday event. So it is available for use. There is some parameters that we will make sure people meet to be able to use it. Mainly, it needs to provide, your event needs to provide entertainment or support for tourism. It was entirely funded from the hotel occupancy tax, meaning that no actual taxpayer dollars were used to build it. It was built from the money paid by tourists who have come here to visit. So we need to be supporting tourism and the use of it. One of the big things too is to tell us when social media is available for your event, so that we can share it, and we can make, you can make us a co-host for your event when you create an event on Facebook. So just doing a post on Facebook does not create an event on Facebook for the actual event, if that makes sense. So you actually have another process, which we tried to kind of walk people through it last year, and it was still pretty confusing. I am more than happy to help anyone do that if they want to come by the Visitor Center. It's much easier to do ad buys and promote an event if you create a Facebook event for it, rather than just do a social media post. And when that happens, we, if we're the co-host, we can do the ad buys and things like that. So social media is usually the first place that we see events make an announcement that they're coming or what's happening. And as soon as we see that, we want to get the information onto our website. Like, we have master calendars right now for the whole year that tell us when everybody's planning on having something. But until there's some kind of artwork or something that can go with it, it does not look nice on our website. So as soon as you've created anything that is a poster or a picture, anything like that, we will use that to create then the posting on our website. And then when it actually gets usually a little bit closer to time, posters, flyers, handouts. So that's like rack cards, postcards, well in advance to us, so that we can pass them out to people to bring them back to Alpine. Because of course, that's our ultimate goal. The Visitor Center, you know, we do promotion things, but the people who come to me are already in Alpine. So we want to have stuff farther enough in advance to get them to come back. Cindy brought me on this last week before Cowboy Poetry. She brought me the flyer for Bluegrass Festival, because that's people, if they're going to Cowboy Poetry, they're already interested in music because that's a large piece of that event. So having the Bluegrass Festival flyers is something that they might come back for. Same thing, you know, we'll hopefully have stuff about, we're going to have stuff about Viva whenever people are here for the Spirits of the West and so on and so forth, because that's a huge concert that, again, if people are enjoying music, then they might want to come back for Viva Big Bend. So we're always working the next one ahead. So as soon as you can get those to the visitor center, that's really important. For posters, we have large display cases to put posters in. So anything bigger always looks nice. I even have, at this point, I have some of the theater sandwich boards that blew away in Fort Davis. So they brought them to me. So I have some of those. One of them, but we don't have like sandwich boards that sit outside. Those actually usually belong to the event, but we have stuff on our porch, that the cases that we can put your posters in. And then we also hang them up inside, and we can accommodate, like I said, the larger size posters. So I would like at least 4 of those so that I can cover the front, inside the front porch and the back porch, and then have a spare in case something happens. Then give us a schedule info as early as you can. Again, when a lot of people who put on our events, this is not their full-time job, and we understand that. So we're happy to answer questions from people who are looking for information about events. But it's very helpful if I have a schedule that I can talk to them about when they start asking questions. You know, if I have a schedule I can refer to and let them know what's happening, and I will take that schedule and add it to so we can get an actual event onto the website well in advance, and then we can update that posting with a schedule as it gets closer. This last year for Viva Big Bend, I was actually able to I didn't do every single performance. I did every performance in Alpine was individually listed as an event on our website, which really looks nice. It shows that, because otherwise, you know, if we put Viva Big Bend for 5 days, that doesn't tell people anything. It doesn't help them figure out what they want to go to. So it's always nice to have a little bit more detailed schedule. A big one is to tell us how and where people can purchase tickets. More and more people are going to online ticket purchase, which is great, but a lot of people get confused in that process. Again, they want to talk to a real person about how to do it. And if you have, you know, emails on your website or on your Facebook that says like for info, check those. We don't want you to forget about those, because people will be like, I've been trying to get a hold of them for 3 weeks and I can't find out any information. And it's because it's going to somebody's email and they don't know what it is, or they set it up and they send it to not their work email. It's going, or not, you know, vice versa, work, personal, whatever. So some of those emails get lost and people are like, nobody's answering my questions. People are going to just decide not to come if they're frustrated with the process. I just helped someone today buy Spirits of the West tickets at the visitor center. She'd come to me. I'd shown her on my laptop where it was. She came back. I just punched in her information and helped her. I'm more than happy to do that too with people. But obviously that's only people who are here in Alpine, like Alpine people who want to go. I answer most of its phone calls. If you can provide me with a contact phone, that's super helpful. Even if you say like, don't have this person call during the day because it's my cell phone or whatever, I'll answer the call in the evening. I will ask them to respect that, because again, a lot of people, if they're already frustrated with the ticket process, they're the kind of person that wants to talk to a live person and not be given a runaround. So give me that information and I can help with that too. We can sell some cash tickets at the visitor center. We have done that before, but it's not been super effective. I don't really recommend it. It's not the way that most people go. So I mean, I can, but I don't think that that's what most people are. That's not where your ticket sales are going to come from, basically. And then talk to me about a booth or tent setup or welcome bags for your event. So basically, when an event happens, if it's an event that is open to the public and anybody can come, they can buy a ticket at the door. They can just walk in to a street festival. Those are the ones that are more effective to have a booth or a table at, because that is one where we don't know who's coming. So we would hopefully have some information about the next big event that's coming, plus the general information about Alpine that we pass out all the time. We have Alpine giveaways that refers them to our website for future visits. You do have people that are just here to see Big Bend and stumble upon our events. And then they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much happening in this town. We want to come back. So if you have me do a booth or tent. We also can help you with doing some email collection during the event. How we've kind of been working it is that you offer something like a ticket giveaway package or something, and we will have a QR code and people can sign up with their email, which would then get them our newsletter and get them on your mailing list if that's how you reach people. So that's something that we can work with you guys on to help promote your event. And then with the welcome bags, that's a little bit different. So like Center for the Big Bend Studies, they have their conference. They have limited people who just walk into that conference. Most people have registered well in advance to come to that. So I made them 160 bags or something like that already ready to go. And I didn't set up a booth or table because I could have everything just, they handed everyone a bag. And that's kind of the how I differentiate between, is it a bag situation or should I be there with a booth or a table? If we know who's registered now, Viva Big Bend, Stewart sells a ton of tickets in advance. There's no way I'm going to make all those bags. I just keep the visitor center open for something like that, because that's a larger benefit than me leaving that site. When we have 2 people there, I can leave more, but for something like that, especially now that we have the new restrooms, it's a much more beneficial to everyone for us to keep the visitor center open when you have that large amount of tourists that are coming in at one time. Anything I've forgotten?
No, I don't think so.
Any questions? I know we don't have a ton of event organizers sitting here, but main thing is you can call me at the visitor center and ask questions. My email is the one that's generally it's on the Facebook, it's on the website, it's all over. It's just the visitor center at visitalpinetx.com. There's another one that's info@visitalpinetx.com that goes to both Chris and I. So if you have any questions on that, reach out. I can call you back. We can talk about how to do it. And like I said, I can walk people through how to set up events and things like that with social media. So that's what I have.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that having seen Heather doing her job, she's going to give information that's geared to the person. And so the more she knows about the details of all the events that are coming up, she's going to be able to really lead people towards the things they're going to enjoy.
I mean, the first question I ask when anyone comes in, what brought you to Alpine? What are you interested in? Is there something specific? I mean, it seems like common knowledge to me that that's what you ask, but that's not exactly the route that everyone goes, but that's the very first thing I ask. And, oh, I love history. Well, okay, history tour, Museum of the Big Bend, those are easy, right? We want to hike. Well, here's Hancock Hill. So it's the same thing with what kind of events you're interested in. If they're asking about a lot of questions about, wineries, or they're asking about food things, then Spirits of the West is something they might want to come back for. Anybody who asks about music, start talking to them about Viva Big Bend. We do have now our 2023 rack cards that have every event on them, which is super helpful because people will take that and they'll circle the things they want to come back for. And we give those away at everything I go to. And I am going to more like trade show type stuff. Like I went to the State Fair. I'm going to the Dallas Adventure and Travel Show coming up in April. And then I'm doing Mural Fest in Odessa, which is in May. So those are all opportunities where if you have stuff ready for people who are art-minded, great to have Theater of the Big Bend, something in my hand for that Mural Fest would be wonderful. Chris and I talked about doing a whole new, kind of a backdrop to be at my table that'll feature all the art stuff that we offer in Alpine specifically for that. So that's the kind of thing, that we can work to definitely promote. So those are going to be more opportunities that come up as I travel to these places to promote Alpine. I answered probably 200 times in one day, where is Alpine at the State Fair of Texas. So we still have plenty of opportunity to bring more people here. So. Yeah. Oh, that's a big one too. Trust me, when you have on a shirt that has mountains on it, they're like, why does this shirt have mountains and say Texas? I'm like, there's mountains in Texas. So, yeah.
Sarah, I have a quick question. How much time do you need in advance for us to schedule these stuff?
I don't need a lot of advance. No, I mean, I can do it pretty quickly. I have everything ready to go. It's mainly right now, if I don't, since I don't have help, if it's a week, like if it's a weekend that there's already a lot going on, I don't want to pull out of the visitor center. But if there's not a lot going on, then I'm more than happy to do pretty much anywhere. I've done a lot at Sol Ross now, which is good because we haven't ever really done that before. I did their career fair. I did a football game. Like I think that family weekend was the football game I did. And then we had a conflict with homecoming because we were doing the pumpkin giveaway. But so that was one where like I couldn't do it. But with Saw Ross like move-in weekend, that to me is a prime time where I should be sitting up there with a table or a booth, whatever, and be able to tell these parents like, hey, this is the stuff when you come to visit your kid. These are the things you can do. Give the kids some general information about town too. So yeah, it's not hard for me to set it up, and it's pretty mobile at this point. So. Good.
Well, thank you, Heather. Yeah. The chief.
Hi, y'all. Street closures and parade permits. The main thing, primarily the main thing that we wanted to make sure that we get through is that we have the safety of everybody in mind, either our community, people going through town, and of course, everyone involved in it. So that's our primary goal, is to make sure that everybody's safe. So street closures, one of the things that, because of the recent street closures, one of the things that we're looking at doing now is also incorporating some type of insurance, because of if somebody gets hurt, somebody's is going to be liable, and we want to make sure that that's covered. And if the organizer is not being safe, it lays on us, on the police department, and for the city of Alpine. And so we want to make sure that all those events are safe. Street closures, as far as Fifth Street, that's handled by TxDOT. But again, we're still responsible to make sure that things are done safely. Our barricades are up. There's plenty of reflective cones in the area, and to be seen.
Where should somebody go if I want to close any street besides this street? Who do I need to talk to?
So you can either contact the police department by email, contact me by email, or you can come to the police department in person and to make that application. There's not much to the application. That it's important that they're filled out, times, dates, from what time to what time, and who's responsible to have a good number to contact. There's been times where we have an event and we're not able to get in contact with a person that's responsible. So it's important that we have, if there's not one person, if there's multiple persons, to have all those listed so that we can easily contact them.
I do street closures and I never know how soon in advance I should close off a street so that the cars are like off of it in time for the
You
event.
betcha, yeah.
And I know it makes a difference on which street it is too. Like if I'm closing my alley behind my building, and I don't have to do it as soon. So what's kind of a guideline I guess there? Or you help with that as they do the application?
Yeah, and I'll help as much as I can. And it all depends on what area is being requested to be closed off. And let me give the for instance. So when we do art walk, so one of the things that's requested to be closed off is the area behind the trees, which is city property. And so we do a street closure permit on that, closing the Holland side, and on Fifth Street side, we leave the back side open for the traffic for the railroad. But normally what I ask them to do is we'll close it off on that Thursday morning. I'm sorry.
And so you started sooner this year to make sure all the cars
Yes.
are on. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Wednesday we did this last year. And the reason we do that is we want to make sure that all the vehicles are moved out of the area. A lot of those are employees of Union Pacific. They don't live in the area. They travel. That's their work vehicle basically, and they use it to and from the hotel. So we like to see if we can either put signs up that this area is going to be closed off for the certain amount of time. And then this last one, it was excellent. All we had was one vehicle, and Philip knew the guy, my captain, knew the guy personally. And so we had that vehicle driven off the lot. And actually we took it to the police department to make sure it was secured. Parade permits, the one thing that I want people to understand on a parade permit, we pay these officers when they're working a parade, they're working overtime. And a lot of these guys are coming up night shift. And so that's a big cost. If considering a parade from Holland to the usual spot of Jackson Field, that's one leading it, two in the back, one at Fifth Street, one at Cockrell, one at the railroad, and then we also use other agencies as well. And so those officers, say the newest officer, he'll be making $18.50 an hour, and so he's getting time and a half for it. And so you have to consider that that's a lot of money that's being spent for a parade. And so it's important that we have it's a well advertised, well attended parade, because that takes people away from the families and takes have them on PDF to where I can send them off to if I need to email it. And so it's not a problem.
Now, Chief, if it's Holland or Avenue E or Fifth Street, which are the highways, what do they need to do then? They come to, like, if they come to you, can you direct them to the right person at TxDOT?
No, so as far as the parade, it's still, it'll come to us. The only time that they need to go to TxDOT is if it's an actual street closure
I see.
on the highways. And that has to go through TxDOT because they have to find alternate roads for
The
their,
parade isn't considered a street closure because you guys do your little
Yes.
leapfrog thing and just keep it closed temporarily
Yeah.
for when, like they just block it with their car while the parade goes and then they hop around.
Yeah.
They just keep going down streets. Sorry.
To close a state highway, you also have to have a censor.
yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That is good information.
Yeah,
So,
thanks for reminding me.
If and that's mostly Fifth Street.
Yeah,
But that would be Avenue E, Holland or Fifth Street. Any closure there, you're gonna want to have like way more lead time.
Yeah.
Because you've got to not only get a state agency to approve it, but then it has to go through the scheduling of getting on an agenda in a time to
Yes.
get before council. Now, for a street closure, a parade, what's the lead time that you need?
I would prefer at least a week in advance. I mean, not a week in advance, a month in advance.
I was gonna say,
A month in at least a month, because a lot of times it's hard to coordinate. So we used to, for instance, that we used to run the homecoming parade down Soros Avenue and turn on Cherry. Well, a lot of them were using larger vehicles or buses, and so we had to run them down Avenue E, and so we have to make alternate routes available as well. And so it takes a lot of traffic control to make sure that that's taken care of. And then that is one of the scary parades, because people will get on the opposite side of the road while there's vehicles still going. And so we try to stop those vehicles for the most part. If we can send them one by one, we'll do that, have them go slow. But
that corner at Triangle.
yes, at Cherry at the Triangle, yes. And so it's important that we have enough time to make sure that we coordinate everything. So,
A month at least,
yes, a month at least,
and
yes.
more for a closure of a highway.
Yes,
You would
Yeah.
do
Minimum of 60 days, okay?
Daryl, quick question.
yes, ma'am.
The event coordinator, do they pay for your officers that work the parade?
No, they don't.
Who pays for
The city does.
them?
Yes, ma'am. And that's actually one of the things that we were starting to consider it may be making an ordinance to where if we have a parade that we need to charge them for it. Because like I said, that's a lot of money that's coming out of the pocket of the taxpayers. And yeah. And one of the things that we were talking today is it takes a coordinating sometimes, like I said again, I don't mind doing it. It does take a lot of my time to set up a street closure. And the one I'm working on right now is Spirits of the West, and to make sure that, all right, last year Benny Keith was upset because they were trying to do deliveries while we're trying to close down 6th Street. And so I spoke to Eddie with Benny Keith to make sure that he goes, we'll be fine. And then TDS is one that I talked to, and that's one of their main pickups is on that Friday. And so we got to make sure that that area, at least in the alley, so we can run the trucks through.
And people doing races have to do all this with you as well.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
we're just talking about events and parades, but like 5Ks, 10Ks, they
Yeah.
need to work with you too.
Yes, and I thank you for reminding, because we were actually talking about doing a new 5K, because that one takes a lot as well. Because again, we call it leapfrogging. You'll leapfrog from one intersection to another, and so yeah, like if we're doing a 5K around Loop, if I have an officer over on Brown and Harrison, once that last person passes him, he'll leap over to Brown and 5th Street. And so, yeah, it does take a lot of time. And we never get to participate. Yeah.
One of the issues that was happening when I was still here was that Union Pacific was not notified when Art Walk was happening. So if there was a train being picked up on the east side of town,
Mhm.
going the opposite direction, they did not have direction to slow down because they didn't know that the event was happening. They had never been notified that these events were happening like Art Walk.
Right.
They never.
So-
The district manager that they didn't clear the parking lot.
So after the incident in Midland, if you remember that, we started contacting them, and we also have not for Art Walk, but for parades, we usually have an officer there on the railroad tracks on Cockrell, so that if there's a train coming, that we stop the parade. But after the incident in Midland, we contact them in advance, but and just basically ask them to slow down as they're coming through here. At the Fiesta 1888, thank you very much. We contacted them and they slowed down. And so we just want to make sure that everyone's safe. So, yeah.
So I've got a question on for the street closure. I mean, it hasn't been approved yet for the PS 1888. So is that the only event that's gonna be required in insurance?
Well, because like we explained to you on the phone, because of the incidents that we had this last time, people parking on Union Pacific right away, and people walking across the railroad tracks, not on 5th Street, but over the
No, they weren't walking on the street, which is 5th
Correct.
Street. They were walking.
yes,
Just across.
they were finding any way to get across.
They were parked on the track.
Yeah, and there was points where officers actually had to get them off the track. There was kids trying to play on the tracks, and so we had to have officers run them off. And so, yeah, that's one of that's the main reason. So like I said, security and public safety, that's our main requirement, is to make sure that everybody's safe. We don't want anybody hurt, and we don't want anybody to have liability on it.
So when you say they were parked along there, I didn't get to see because I was busy.
Mhm.
So I didn't get to see anything.
Right.
I was taking care of the inside, but I didn't get to see the outside.
Yes,
So it's of course, it's on the north side of the railroad.
yes, ma'am.
Correct? Right there where you have the caboose.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that?
And they actually, when I drove through there, they were all the way back up to close to where Foxworth is at.
And that's private property.
Yeah. Well, all that,
Well,
Well,
So-
people park everywhere
So,
on the events.
so, yeah, but that's a safety issue though.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, well, of course, that's
Yeah.
the Union Pacific's property. So if nobody's allowed to park there, well, they should put private property. Cause these people just, even for any
Well,
other
we-
events, they park in there.
Yeah, we can't have signs for everything. That, we'll have a whole town full of signs if that was the case.
When they park there for art walk,
They don't park there on Art Walk.
I've seen a lot of cars there.
I've never seen that on Art Walk. Yeah, they may be parked over, behind the booths. But as far as parking over there behind, all that area between, by Foxworth,
Is that?
yes, yeah, no. They have a distance of, I believe it's gonna say 20 feet on each side of the railroad that they have, responsibility for. And so,
Well, and I understand
Yes.
because it's not safe. It's
Yeah.
a safety issue.
I'm sorry?
I thought it was 200. You go to track to go pins.
Oh, no, yeah. It would be convenient they did, but they, no. Let me think here. So, security, and public safety, that's to make sure that everything, one of the things as well is if you need to, sometimes some events hire their officers as security. We have some going on for the Spirits of the West, Wine Fest. So, we have security. The officers get paid $35 an hour when they're working security. It's best to contact us as soon as possible if you're needing security. If it's a last minute when you're having more officers or more people than you expect, and you need to hire more people than what you planned, we'll try to get as many officers as we can. But we still have the responsibility for the rest of the community to, so.
Are they allowed to hire private security?
Yes, they're allowed to have private, and that's one of the things.
By you, who it is,
No.
or like, are they, you can't just say
Well-
like, I'm not qualified to do security. You can't say like, oh, we're Heather's our security.
They
Well,
need to communicate with the. police
yes.
department
Who it
is
is,
going to
okay.
be representing their
Yes,
So, yeah, gotcha.
yes.
That's what I was asking.
And that's one of the things that I requested from Mary Ann is, I recommended for her to hire security to put there to make sure that no one's gets close to the track. And I understand that when you go to events like that, it's not fun not to participate. And so we ask that they're not drinking, that somebody that has a good moral character that can make decisions, that we don't have to go back and say, well, you shouldn't have done this. So,
Probably not Hell's Angels.
Right.
Right.
yeah. But, I do, that event brought a lot of people together and I noticed different motorcycle gangs that they were mingling. They probably wouldn't tell the rest of their buddies that, but there were. And, there was a lot of people. It was a big event that just,
The biggest we can remember.
yeah.
So,
And it just got too packed.
yeah. So
Yeah.
if,
And we had a lot of residents upset because they were blocking the driveways and blocking intersections. And we just couldn't get to all those calls.
What about like, a recommendation of a shuttle or something for something like that? Like at that time of year, Ross.
You betcha.
You know, if you could get a bus to take people from the
Jacksonville?
arena into town or something like that, or.
Yeah,
If they went to back and forth, if they could get at one of the hotels that had a big parking area, you could ask for hot fund money for it because it could start and finish at a hotel, right?
And I was also thinking of if the Jackson Field is available,
that's what I'm-
talk to Ross and say, well, that we can rent your parking lot and then have somebody shuttle the people.
Well, and
like
that's
when they
not
do
very
at the
far.
gates,
You wouldn't even have to
well,
have,
you can walk,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
if
but
there's
if
like
you had,
older people
yeah.
that can't walk from there.
you could do Kubotas for that, though. You wouldn't even,
Yeah.
you just have to get permission to use Kubotas in town, right, on the streets?
Well, I would recommend a
Oh, you-
UV,
Actual car.
well, either a golf cart that, like what the university has.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think they call them urban something. So, but yeah,
I'm not
the
even shuttle to keep people from parking all over downtown would just make it the event more enjoyable and
Mhm.
personal.
Yeah. Any questions?
So would that be acceptable if, you know, if Saras was to approve?
Oh, sure.
parking lot
Yeah.
and have-
One of the things I
That's
reckon,
the parking is the issue for a big event.
Yes.
like that. So we use that if they allow us whatever paperwork.
one of the things I recommend, again, not to be a Debbie Downer, but just thinking is if you have vehicles out there, you're gonna need somebody to watch those vehicles.
Yes.
Because that's the last thing you need, just a whole bunch of vehicles broken
It's a
into.
crime of opportunity.
Yes.
Oh, I see. So you'll need.
Somebody just to be at the lot, because otherwise you've got a whole bunch of cars that just sit there
Yeah.
and people
Yes,
are not
like when
coming
you
back
go to
for
the
hours.
games,
Right.
Dallas,
Right?
a lot of burgers.
Yes, ma'am. So,
It's,
and again, I'm more than happy to help out to strategize an event. So if there's any questions.
Yeah, so that seems like to be really the takeaway would be if you're planning an event of any significant size, really anywhere in town, but specifically if it's out of doors in on a street closure or something, anything like that, just get with the chief and
Yeah.
walk through what you're planning.
And to consider now, we now have the new ordinance for noise, and so you have to consider that. And make sure that you follow the ordinance, or you'll be in violation.
so
And-
what is the rate, like, what is on the weekend? It can be a little bit louder, right? Like on a Saturday, or is it the same Monday through or 7 days a week?
Weekends are a little, I can't tell you exactly, but yeah, weekends are a little bit later, and you can get a live music permit that, see, there's daytime hours, daytime noise limits, evening and then night, which is the quietest. But if you get a live music permit, you can have that evening noise level later into the night in consideration of the event.
The other thing that you need to remember along with that, it's live music. It has to be actually somebody up there singing. It not
just
a
DJ
DJ.
playing music.
Yeah, and if it's a DJ, then it just needs to fit the level that
Right.
it would
It's
be.
it's lower. We had a problem with another business where the DJ was yelling louder on the microphone than the actual group that was playing. So you have to make sure that you're tone it down. So
Yeah, so we based the volume levels on that one. We had a traveling group come through and the APD took a lot of measurements of what this was a successful event. The crowd was having a good time. How loud was it? And we kind of used that as a benchmark. And then found that when the live band stopped and the DJ came on, it got way louder. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So much. And so lastly, we've got our exciting new rules for traffic disposal.
Good evening. Well, the new options with the new contract starting last year in March, the city doesn't have an agreement with commercial services for these events. So coordinators for the events have to contact trash hauling companies and set up the trash services through them, not through the city. So I got information from TDS, but there's other people out west, Disposal, Republic Services, that they may contact and get pricing. TDS can only offer 20, 30, and 40 yard containers, or 1.5, 3, and 4 cubic yard containers. They don't have polys, or they wouldn't service polys through town.
Like, as an example, what would the city offer in the past? Like say Art Walk in the past when it was part of the contract, how did it used to
Well,
work?
it was never part of the contract, not even the old
Oh,
contract.
really? It
Uh-huh.
just,
Those services were,
So
Sure.
if you need the sanitary made changes within the organization. As a result, we no longer are being provided those services or any of the events.
okay,
The last event, Art Walk, the city was charged for their disposal. And so, we're not in the business to pay for events
Right.
and disposal of trash. So whatever was done before was that group of individuals who were employed with TDS and they're not there anymore.
so did they bring extra dumpsters for the event?
It'd
Or,
be dumpsters, it'd be poly cards, or they may come by and do an extra pickup, but none of that's being done. And the biggest complaint that I've received is when we have an event like that, you have a small window of who has what dumpster. And when you have an event, if the event isn't providing extra services for their trash, they're using the paid dumpsters. that
And then they
belong to
sit
them.
full for almost a week because
Mhm.
they happen on the weekend and the pickup isn't till
Mhm.
Friday that, well, some of the restaurants get more often, but like mine is only on Friday and if there's something, then it's completely full.
So
after an
this
event.
is also an issue that Daryl and I discussed today with the street closures. When you close a street, especially through downtown, you prevent TDS from picking up dumpsters because they can't angle through. So they have to hit that main alley at one section and go straight on through. They can't back up and try to get in for just that little pieces when you have those streets blocked. And so it prevents regular customers from being able to utilize and have those services that they're paying. So under this new regime, they've asked that any event, and TDS has been provided an event list. Any event coordinator needs to contact them and make arrangements and not use residential or commercial dumpsters that are already.
yes. But if somebody like is using the civic center and the trash disposal happening inside the civic center, that's just as normal.
So the civic center, because you're renting it and you're paying through the city and you're paying for the services and fees, you actually have access to the dumpsters here.
Gotcha.
It's part of the contract.
Okay, and so that would then also hold for another event venue, if you're in a venue.
You're
This
in a
is not
venue,
an
you're
issue.
using their services.
Yeah,
But if you're using, you're blocking a city street, you're using private property, even if you're using a city park, you need to provide the additional, coverage because of course our park dumpsters are specifically for park.
mhm.
Not to handle the amount of trash for an event,
Yes.
especially with food vendors when there's a bunch.
Mhm, especially when they're
Yeah.
traceable.
And then what about like your energy, the trash cans on the street still get emptied, but they shouldn't, the event should not be using those like they're their personal dumpsters.
Correct. So the event coordinators and the booth people shouldn't be going to, I mean, these are little like, 40, 50 gallon, 30 gallon dumpsters or trash receptacles. And like Art Walk and Spirits of the West, they filled up fast. And so our guys, and this is a part of the conversation I think will happen later. We're paying city staff to go empty those because they are city property. But then we're also having to pay to dispose of it. And when we have the bigger events, we're having to dispose of it more often.
Gotcha. And so, I know,
Do they need to get with Adelina about where a dumpster should be placed? Best
No.
spot?
No. So there's been some confusion in Adelina's role. Adelina does not actually manage any of our trash stuff. She assisted the city and kind of got thrown into it, and then no one is allowing her to do her actual job. She helps with recycling and she helps with illegal dumping. The event coordinator really needs to contact TDS and say, hey, I'm having an event, I need a trash can, a dumpster, a roll off, whatever it is, and I want it here. TDS is really, or I'm sorry, I should rephrase, TDS, Republic, and Out West know their equipment, know what they have to offer, know where they can put it, where they can't.
But
put
these
it.
event people need to get permission to put it on somebody's private property or in a
Correct.
parking lot downtown or something like that.
And you have to pay for the.
Yeah, but like, I mean, Out West donates to a lot of things, so maybe they do an in-kind donation instead or something like that, but they can't just go set it wherever. They have
Yeah,
to.
they
Actually
need
have permission.
to work with that.
Marianne, who was the person that donated your car?
What was the?
Because
Jeffrey
it was
Castillo?
it was another company as well that serviced their Fiesta 1888.
I forgot the name, Alpine or Jeffrey Castillo.
But there's couple of disposal companies and they have different prices, and at least from TDS, the information I got from them, they want a certain person to be contacted by event coordinators. Dan Slovak, and it's temporary site services. So at least 30 days prior to event, and they'll set accounts separately with those coordinators. Another thing, he gave me these prices just of the day I spoke with him. All of this is subject to change. They can't, either it's less or more depending on what you need. But like I said, it's 30, 40 yards and 1.5, 3 and 4 cubic yard containers. And it would be for the weekend. So I use Mary Ann's property. And this is kind of like the estimation of what it would cost to deliver and to haul off from Friday, let's say March 10th to Monday, March 13th. So these prices are subject to change.
Yeah.
They really make that.
So yeah, it seems like an event organizer really needs to way ahead of time, contact one or more of these disposal companies and talk about what scale of the event to get that input on what kind of containers are you going to need, how much should you expect. If you haven't done it before, it's going to be a learning curve for sure. And so
I actually contacted TDS when we were trying to put the bazaar together at the church. We had to fill out an application, we had to fill out a contract, it had to go to corporate. They can't make the decision here in-house. And they were.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Dan Slovak was really precise that the local office doesn't get any calls. Everything goes through Austin.
And that's why they want at least 90 days,
Mhm.
because it is a process.
And it's expensive because once they put all that trash in there, it's gonna cost. I was just very fortunate that I had a sponsor that paid for all.
Yeah. And that could be
Because it
something
was a
people think in this event, they have sponsors for.
right.
You
Something
can
to
get,
think about.
I mean, it's up to, but whatever the cost is, they've gotta be ready to pay that.
And like, we need 90 days.
And then
Mhm.
find the permission from the request, like I said, it was you when I did the 1988.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But most definitely, we needed that container for the trash.
yeah.
And then we hired a trash person that was picking up constantly the trash and putting it in the container. And we still had to pick up. We went all around the area
Mhm.
the next day and we still had to pick up trash. That we did it, we had volunteers that helped us pick up the rest of the trash. I mean, because people, sometimes they'll just leave, if they're eating a plate, they'll just throw it on the ground. And we have to pick it up, that's part of our having the event, because not everybody is gonna put it in the trash can,
Yeah, and so that was a big, this item was one of the big reasons we wanted to have this workshop. To make sure, because it's not something that's been on everybody's radar until this last year. And so going forward, it's a serious thing everybody needs to think about.
Any other questions?
That is everything I had in mind to talk about today. Is there any questions about anything else that anybody wants to talk about related to having events in Alpine?
You know where to find it.
Oh, you do know where to find it. And then April 6th, I highly recommend everybody who's interested in hotel occupancy tax to come to that. One of the things that for the folks who are here should know, the application has some requirements at the end that have always been there, but the city hasn't always truly required it. And so one of those things is a budget. So having the full revenue and expense projection for the event, a marketing plan, which can be kind of shown in the budget. If you break out your marketing expenses, itemize it enough, that can serve as a marketing plan. But the more something to really show the hotel occupancy tax committee that you're thinking about promotion and telling them how you're going to invite people to town, things like that. But we'll go over all that on the 6th. It's stuff that, like I said, it's always been there in the application. I'm just going to point out where it is in the application, make sure everybody knows. And then I'll work with the applicants as things come in and make sure that that everybody gets what they need. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. Thanks everybody who's listening in the
One
future.
more question.
Yeah, Mary Ann.
Here. With a smaller event like the Cinco de Mayo, what is, I have to do the same thing, or that's way,
No, it's,
that's way smaller than,
Yeah.
that's just local, pretty much. I mean, we do have like a lot of counters, but not like this 1888. There was just too many people from out of town. I don't know.
Your,
They just called
your
me.
event gave us a whole new like sphere of what
Yes.
events could be, you know?
so, did you find out where all these people were staying?
That was actually a problem from what I heard from hotels. They didn't make advance reservations for FIS 1888 last
We
year.
did.
No, but a lot of people who
Oh,
came
they
thought that
just
they would
dropped-
just be able to get a room. They didn't
And they
understand that
didn't.
that was not a possibility here. And one of the hotels finally said that they would let up to 10 people stay in a room, just so that people weren't leaving, which normally they don't let people do that. But you were also competing with Salt Ross Move-In Weekend, was the same weekend, and those people made their reservations.
Yes.
So you had a bunch of rooms taken by that, but that was, people, I guess maybe part of the
Well, I did.
the
a
podcast
roadblock.
beforehand, or every time that like, if you have Robert talking about the event, say like, make your reservations early to stay, would be a good message to put out about it, because people had this illusion that they were just gonna be able to walk up to a hotel in Alpine that night and get a room, and they couldn't. So I think that needs to be part of the
And
messaging
they
in
could-
the marketing.
They could block so many rooms, and that's what I did.
Yeah, no, I know, and then you have to put down your own credit card and everything, that's why I think it shouldn't be on you to block all the rooms, it should be.
At Circle 7, I was gonna have to put down my card. And I'm like, what if these people don't show up, then I'm gonna have to pay for it?
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. That's just the high risk.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I
Well-
said, if every time someone talks about it, just tell them, make your reservations early, get your rooms reserved to
there
stay
was
in
people in
Alpine.
RV cars.
Yeah, they were full, and then people were tent camping or car camping, and that's not always safe either.
The one thing that I'll reiterate is to make sure that somebody's there along the railroad tracks, to keep people, well, not,
No, most definitely, for
Yeah.
sure.
because there was so many people that.
No, directing with flashlight, their vests and all that, somebody that's very, that can have like, cause some people are kind of stubborn sometimes. I mean, you don't know what you're gonna run into, you know, like if you, well,
And
you
there was-
know, it's for the safety.
And there were a lot of convenience stores that were out of beer too, so it was.
And they attacked the dollar stores with candies and all that, like, I went the next day to the dollar store, I'm like, it was like, they just bought all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
But it was like an amazing, because I had this lady call from Houston, I'm like, you're gonna come from Houston to Alpine when you have them in Austin. Right, but they wanted to come to Alpine, they just like the feeling or coming into the small town, it's way different than
Yeah.
going to an event in the city.
Yeah.
Coming into a small town, and they love the little town and the surrounding area.
Like I said, again, it was the way they commingled everyone. We really didn't have any problems as far as fighting or anything like that.
It was just a railroad.
Yeah. So,
They, they just enjoyed it. It was just out in the open, and they sat down and mingled with, they had people coming, their friends, family, and then they just enjoyed it, That outdoor, it was a dance, and they really did enjoy it. But, yeah, there's a lot of things to think about as we go along, you learn,
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely set us at a different.
Yeah, we learned a lot. Still learning. Well, thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, Chris.
We'll,
Thank you.
be on the stick.